Happy March break. We have some amazing virtual training happening in the Market Center along with in-person training. So just because it's March break doesn't mean we stop. However, we do appreciate you probably want to take some time to rest and relax. But just in case you do have some time, we wanted to make you aware of what's happening here.
What is happening?
So on March 14th and the 17th, we have the 201 Club. So this one I love because not only is it a virtual training, you can just hop on, so grab your morning coffee or tea and join us at 11 a.m. And one of the things we're really trying to emphasize with our agents is the numbers have shown us that agents who have at least 201 contacts in command and communicate with them in a systematic way, aka smart plans, on average generate $118,000 in GCI. So that's gross commission income. You are literally leaving money on the table if you're not striving for at least 201 contacts in command. And then on March 15th, we have our monthly stakeholder. So again, I know it's March break. Some of you are traveling. So this monthly all-team meeting, it will be available virtually as well. We'd love it if you can come out. I'm excited because we're actually going to be launching a new template and format for our stakeholders. So come on out, join us virtually. I want to get your feedback afterwards, but we're always looking to improve what we're offering you. And on March 15th, we're also hosting our Millionaire Real Estate Investment Webinar. So this is done through Keller Mortgages. We host it every month. And Mike, I love these webinars from a realtor perspective because it's such a great excuse to call your database.
The power's in the invite.
Yes.
And I mean, I've seen that webinar, I don't know, countless times at this point. It's just a fantastic piece of information that Jeff brings to the table. Who better to learn from than somebody who's, well, pretty much mastered real estate investment, right? So,
and I was chatting with Jeff the other day and he said, you know, I've never cold called to build my real estate business. I did it through things like the MREI webinar, where he would meet people while he's grabbing coffee or calling his database and inviting him to webinars like this. So I would encourage you, I would challenge you to call your database and just let them know this is happening and email or text them the invite. And then after the event, give them a call, get their feedback, and then find out from them, so who else do you know that would benefit from a webinar like this?
Right.
This is lead generation.
We actually have the conversation written out that you can use to call your
script for that.
We have it. Yes, we do.
So if you want the script, reach out to Mike or myself.
Absolutely. And like I said, you can leverage that webinar in such a fantastic way. The client stays always in your ecosystem. Whoever you send there, it's on record. And Jeff has always made it clear, whoever invited you today is your realtor, but I'm happy to share my information with you.
Right. It is meant for you to leverage for your business and position it as something that you are hosting and putting together. What's happening in the market that we need to be aware of?
Just in the last 7 days, 161 new properties, 7 back to market, 121 sold, and 55 came off the market. So a little bit of a deficit, but relatively balanced from what we're seeing on that side of it. We saw the Bank of Canada hold interest rates for the first time in how long? With prices remaining somewhat consistent over the last 6 months. Now interest rates a quarter point up a month ago, nothing this month. Buyers have seen the bottom and they are back.
Great time to reach out to your buyers.
Great time to reach out, let them know what's happening.
Today we do have a special guest. Mike, tell us about our special guest today.
Today we have Cassie Kelloway coming in. She's with Elite Property Management, and she is going to give us a whole bunch of wonderful information on notices of termination, who's supposed to serve them, what each one does, and how to make sure that the realtor is doing their role properly and not necessarily taking on roles of other people that they shouldn't be doing. Cassie Kelloway with Elite Property Management is here to join us now.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure for sure, Cassie. Now, we have a couple of questions for you and hoping that you can shed some light through your expertise in the property management field as to what happens with some of the different notices of termination. Who should be serving them? You know, some of the pitfalls that realtors need to really be aware of to make sure they're not getting themselves in hot water or jeopardizing the investors.
Absolutely. Number one thing that I have noticed lately is that the N12 is being served incorrectly.
And which one's the N12?
The N12 is if an investor or a buyer is buying a property and it's tenanted.
Okay.
Okay, the buyer has to be the one to serve that N12. Because if the owner, the current owner that is their landlord, serves that N12 and it goes to tribunal, because the only person that can ever evict a tenant is the LTB,
Right.
the Landlords and Tenant Board.
Right.
And 9 chances out of 10, tenants are utilizing, especially this past couple of years, that we've noticed that tenants aren't paying. They're utilizing their tenants' rights, and they're prolonging it as long as they can because they know that the LTB is backlogged for hearing dates.
Right.
And there's anywhere between 8 months to 18 months.
No way.
And I know this firsthand because I'm currently waiting, and I'm in my 15th month for one file for a hearing date.
Wow.
And this tenant is $76,000 in arrears.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And it's not a tenant that I put in there. It's a tenant that I've inherited. That an investor bought the property. The N12 was served incorrectly.
Okay.
The owner at that time served it. It has to be the new owner and that serves the N12. If the new owner does not serve the N12, the tenant can stay there and it'll get thrown out.
Now, Cassie, does that new owner or the buyer at the time of offer, do they have to take possession of the property to then serve that N12?
The N12, they have to take possession.
So
that they're moving in.
Okay, so if I'm a first-time buyer and I'm buying a townhouse that's already got a tenant in it,
Correct.
and I want to use this for myself, personal
Yes.
use.
You have to sign an affidavit and serve the N12 that you're moving in there.
Okay, but again, I have to wait till after closing when I own the property to serve that, or it can be served during the pending period?
It can be served during the pending period.
Okay.
And what happens is then at the top of the page, there's the tenant's name and the landlord's name. So you put on the landlord's name, the current landlord,
Okay.
right? Care of.
Okay.
And if the person is incorporated, you can never serve an N12 from an incorporated.
Okay.
I always use their personal name.
Okay. Now, so for the person who doesn't necessarily know what an N4, N5, N8 is, what are all these N's? What are all these N's, Cassie?
Right. So the N4 is if a tenant doesn't pay their rent on the first, rent is paid on the first of every month.
Okay.
By the second, you should be serving an N4 stating that the tenant is owing such and such amount, could be $1,800, and they have 14 business days to get that paid up or
Right.
move out. If you're emailing the N4, make sure that there's a document on the LTB website stating when you sign your lease, make sure you print that off and have your tenant and yourself sign it. That way you can send electronic notices to them.
Okay.
You can put it in your lease all you want. It's not valid.
Okay.
You need that document signed that's on the LTB.
Okay. And Cassie, why is it so important that a landlord issue that notice of late payment right away rather than giving the tenant some leeway here and there?
If you don't serve it, then you have that amount of time, 21 days, 1 day even, makes a huge difference in the LTB waiting for a hearing date. Still serve the N12, the N4, the N8, whichever it may be. File it right away as soon as your expiry date is done.
You're almost always building a case.
Always.
Just in case.
Always.
A just in case case.
And and never have a verbal conversation with your tenant, ever. You need to be able to prove 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt. And even then, sometimes it's even difficult because 95% of the time, they're in favor of the tenant, regardless if they're in the right or the wrong.
When it comes to real estate agents who are in the middle of this transaction,
Yes.
what role should they be playing with respect to these notices?
The seller's agent should be serving the notice on behalf of the buyer.
So when I'm putting an offer together as the buyer's agent,
Yes.
and I've got a property here which my buyer intends on moving in themselves, and it's tenanted, I'm going to put an offer together which states that the seller shall serve an N12 notice on behalf of the buyer?
Correct.
Okay. And so the buyer's agent and the buyer do not serve anything ever?
No, they do not. It has to come from the current, and that's why it's so important to put down care of at the top.
Okay. And I mean, we are talking about the law, the Landlord Tenant Board.
Yes.
It's a tribunal.
Yes.
It has teeth.
Yes, it does.
Right?
It does, and it goes after. And if one I is missing on that document,
Yeah.
it's like, see ya.
I used to say back in my paralegal days that when it came to the law, you better always dot your I's and cross your T's.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah,
if you miss
absolutely.
a comma in some situations can change everything that you've just written.
Yes, highly recommend hiring a paralegal. Never do it yourself.
That makes the most amount of sense.
Yeah.
Actually, it was one of my favorite auditoriums was at the landlord tenant board. Now, just for the record, my license is set to retired now, so I can't help all the agents out there when they're
all,
looking
like,
for it.
texting and
I just want to
emailing
make
you.
sure we put that out there.
Trust me, I've tried. I've tried a couple of times asking them.
I'm happy to spitball and come up with some ideas for you, but I can't actually go there anymore and represent.
Exactly.
So if we're going to be representing our buyers properly, our investors properly, A, we want to make sure we have a wonderful property manager.
Correct.
We need to have a paralegal. One last question for you, Cassie. The N11, to be able to issue the eviction on consent, when would that best be used?
Right away. And it must be 100% concrete agreed. Have it in an email that they're agreeing to sign the N11. Have it documented via text or via email from that tenant that they're agreeing to sign the N11. Have them sign it right away.
Okay. Now, because the N11 is on consent, is that an easier case when we go to the landlord tenant board if something goes wrong, given the fact that both parties have consented and agreed to?
As long as they weren't coerced into.
And so that's where you're saying, let's make sure we have somewhere else in writing, such as the email trail, to show that they understood.
Correct.
Number one, they understood what they were signing.
Correct.
And that they were, in fact, consenting. Well, Cassie, thank you so much for all the wonderful information today.
You're
really
very welcome.
Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me again.
So if you're ever looking for a wonderful property manager, make sure that you pop in and you say hello to Cassie.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you.